you're going to hear, as the judge reads you some instructions later on in the trial, you're going to hear the word reasonable over and over again. And I think a lot of times when people come into a courtroom, they expect that there's something magical that goes on here. And while we do have a very good system of justice in our country, we want people to come in and bring their common sense and experiences into the courtroom and judge the evidence based on their common sense and reason. Will each of you agree with me and promise me that you will use your common sense and reason in evaluating the evidence that you're going to hear here in court today?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Now, has anyone ever been a juror before? Mr. Boston, how long ago was it that you served as a juror?
This is 2010. I want to say 2002.
All right.
I don't suppose you all could look it up.
Well, that's not necessary. We don't have to have the exact date, but you know what we want to know from that experience is what kind of case it was.
This was a case where the way it was presented to us that this was a drug deal gone bad, and this drug dealer was accused of stealing someone's car. The drug dealer said that the car was payment for some drugs, so we had to decide if the drug dealer was telling the truth or not.
Okay, so from what I'm hearing you, this was a criminal case. Somebody was charged with a crime.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and you had to hear the evidence and decide whether or not they were guilty or not guilty.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and did you happen to be the foreman in that case?
No, ma'am.
All right. And then I saw someone else's hand over here. Who did I see that had also been a juror? Okay. I must have just saw something out of the corner of my eye that wasn't right. In hearing the evidence in that case, Mr. Boston, you probably heard the term beyond a reasonable doubt, didn't you?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and beyond a reasonable doubt, there's that reasonable word again. We're talking about common sense and reason. Beyond a reasonable doubt is the standard of proof. And I anticipate that when the judge reads you the instructions, he's going to tell you that the state, which is me, has to prove that the defendant is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, we all watch a lot of TV. I know that you all probably watch CSI and all the other crime shows. That's kind of the, it's a really popular theme these days, and all of us watch that. How many of you watch CSI? Okay. And you may have heard other, I'm of a generation that I probably watched more Perry Mason than I watched CSI. But in Perry Mason, I can remember that the prosecutor or the defense attorney used to say, beyond the shadow of a doubt. But that's not our standard, is it, Mr. Boston? It's beyond a reasonable doubt. Okay? Because, Mr. Boston, if I was going to have to prove to you beyond the shadow of a doubt that the defendant was guilty, you'd have to witness it, wouldn't you?
Yes, ma'am.
You'd have to see it with your own two eyes.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Or I'd have to have a videotape.
Yes, ma'am.
And crimes often don't happen where there's a video camera. Would you agree with me?
Since my car got broken into, yes.
Yes, okay. So that's what we have to prove. Now, in a civil case, if you're called upon to sit during your service as a civil juror, you'll hear the civil attorneys, and they'll do a little thing like this, where they have a way, like a scale of justice, and they'll say if it tips just a little bit this way, then we've proven our case. But that's not the same thing in a criminal case. It is beyond a reasonable doubt. If you have a reasonable doubt in the graver transactions of life, such that you would have in a graver transaction of life, then we have not proved our case. So this is something that's really kind of internal. Ms. Pate, do you understand, or do you think you understand beyond a reasonable doubt that it's something in your heart of hearts, if you are convinced at the end of the evidence that you believe the truth of the matter asserted, that you are convinced beyond a reasonable doubt?
I believe so.
Okay. Does everyone agree with me, or does everyone agree or appreciate beyond a reasonable doubt? Can you accept and apply that law to this case?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.